Hey, what's up, producers? Ryan Hafey with Hafey Digital here. So I recently started a podcast. It's called the Hafey Digital Podcast, naturally. It's a weekly podcast that I live stream on YouTube right from this little podcast studio behind me here, and it's also available wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're interested in video making, cinematography, photography, live streaming, podcasting, camera gear, all that type of stuff, it may be something you'd be interested in. Now, this podcast is something that I've been spending a lot of my free time on, and I've been having a ton of fun with it. And I figured that now that I have a good understanding of how all the parts work together, I'd give you a little tour of my podcast studio here. So without further ado, please enjoy this tour of the Hafey Digital Podcast Studio. So let's start the tour with cameras. What camera am I using for my live streams? Well, I'm using the Sony a6500. On it, I have a 12mm Rokinon cinema lens. Now the lens is full manual, which I actually prefer for this use case, because what I don't want when I'm doing a live stream and when I'm trying to juggle a bunch of different things at once is I don't want the camera hunting for focus. So with the manual lens, I can set my focus manually and I can keep it there and not worry about me going in and out of focus, assuming that I stay within the same distance from the camera. Now, is the Sony a6500 the best camera you can get for live streaming? Probably not, but it does offer a clean HDMI out. I don't record directly into the camera when I'm live streaming, so I can just turn it on and use the outbound HDMI feed. The camera stays on the entire time. I don't have to worry about overheating or anything like that, or recording limits. So for me, it works perfectly. And I actually have a second angle, which is over there. It's just a top-down view, which is also a Sony camera. It's the Sony RX100 Mark V. That one is a point and shoot, but it still offers 4K. It still offers a clean HDMI output. So both the cameras work together really well. Over here, I've got a little 5-inch field monitor, which just allows me to make sure that my composition is looking good. It also has a focus assist feature on it, so I can make sure that I've got my focus locked in. And this is an audio recorder, which, to be honest, I don't typically use all that much. I definitely don't use it for the live streams. I actually do all of my recording into my computer. So how do I get the signals from these cameras into the computer? Let's talk about that next. Over in this section, we have first the ATEM Mini. This is the device that accepts and outputs all of the signals from the Sony a6500 we just talked about and the Sony RX100 Mark V, which is up there. This little switcher board is fantastic. It's only $300, which for the price is amazing given what you get out of it. It can accept up to 4 HDMI inputs, and you can switch through them seamlessly with the push of a button. It also gives you the ability to do picture-in-picture functionality using these buttons up there. You can change and play around with different transitions. It even gives you the option to do some chroma keying, which is a pretty cool feature if you use any green screens in any of your live streams. The board also accepts 2 microphone inputs, which are 1/8-inch inputs. They're not XLR, which I would personally prefer, but in my case, it doesn't really matter because I'm actually running all of my audio into this guy here, which is my audio interface. This is a 2 XLR input audio interface, but I use it to control all of my audio, whether input or output. Just makes it very easy to be able to monitor my microphone audio without any latency. I can also monitor my computer audio with this. So this little audio interface is a cool little device. And while we're on the topic of audio, let's talk about the microphone that I'm using for this podcast studio. This is the Audio-Technica AT2035. Now, I'm not super knowledgeable when it comes to microphones, but this thing has great reviews online. For me, it's been very reliable. It's got a more of a bassy sound, I would say, in my opinion. And overall, it's just a good, reliable, well-made mic. And not too expensive. I think it's only around $150 or so. Over here, we have the Elgato Stream Deck, and this thing can do just about everything. It's got 15 customizable buttons on it. You can put bookmarks on it. I use it as a soundboard. I also use this with OBS, which we will talk about in a little bit, but basically it helps me switch between my ATEM Mini input and my screen input. And this here is just a little Google Home device. I really don't use it for anything other than asking it to turn my smart light bulb on and off. Hey Google, turn on the light. Oh, and that's the free-range chicken. Now this is my PC tower. If you are going to be doing any live streaming with a setup similar to what I have here, you're going to need to have some kind of semi-powerful PC to help you process all the data that it's consuming and inputting and outputting. And as far as specs, I've got 32 gigs of RAM. I've got a GTX 1080 graphics card. I just recently upgraded to the Ryzen 7 3700X CPU. And all that is there to ensure that I not only have a high quality stream going out, but that I can at the same time be recording that output to use later if I want to cut up clips or anything like that. Now let's talk lighting. So this is my main light source for whenever I do my live streams. Probably a little bit of overkill. This is a 36-inch softbox. It is connected to a Godox SL60W video light. The price on this video light ranges anywhere from usually $110 to $135, depending on when you buy it. And typically when I'm filming, I only have it at about 30% power. I've used different light sources before. Previously, I used a circular light panel by Falcon Eyes, I believe it was. And it's a good light, but the problem is the light just didn't diffuse quite enough, so I would get hot spots on my forehead, and it just wasn't spread out enough. So this giant softbox here definitely solves that issue, gives me some nice, silky smooth, soft light to work with. So just to recap how everything works together, this Sony a6500 gets plugged into this little monitor here, which outputs then into this ATEM Mini switcher board, along with this Sony RX100 Mark V. This switcher board then gets plugged into the PC via USB. Meanwhile, the microphone here is being plugged in to this audio interface, which is also plugged in to the PC tower over here. This audio interface allows me to control my inbound and outbound audio, which makes things easier for monitoring and controlling levels. This Elgato Stream Deck comes in handy during the broadcast because it allows me to use sound effects and to change camera angles and turn some camera angles on and off. And this thing just turns off my little accent light back here. Hey Google, turn off the light. This is my giant overkill video light. I feel I should also mention this little power strip thing here in the back. This thing is great because I can plug in all of my cameras so they can be powered continuously throughout the stream, but I also have the ATEM switcher board and my video light plugged into it. So when I'm done, all I have to do is press the power button and all of those things turn off. And that's particularly great when it comes to this switcher board because unfortunately the only way to get these bright button lights to turn off is to unplug the device altogether. There's no on-off switch on it. Kind of a bummer, but I'm willing to put up with it. And once you put everything together, this is what it's gonna look like. Check it out. You got camera 1 over here. You got camera 2 up above. Back to camera 1. We can show off my screen there. We can take me out of the corner. We can go back and we can do some sound effects. How about this one? Maybe you didn't like that one. But there's one more thing we need to talk about because it's a critical part of the live stream and recording process, and that's OBS, aka Open Broadcaster Software. Now you have to excuse the infinite mirror effect here, but this is the software that I use to stream and record all of my live podcasts. Now I won't be going too in-depth into OBS in this video because, to be honest, you could do multiple tutorials on OBS alone, but just to give you an idea of how I use it, I typically don't do anything inside OBS during the live stream at all. In fact, all of my camera switching is done through the ATEM switcher board or through the Elgato Stream Deck. And the reason OBS is so critical is because it not only allows me to generate what's called an RTMP feed so that I can live stream to websites like Facebook or YouTube or Twitch if I wanted to, but it also allows me to record my live streams in real time so that I have a high quality version that I can use if I want to cut up clips out of my live streams for later use or smaller pieces of content. And I think that will conclude the tour of the Hafey Digital Podcast Studio. Thanks for following along. Like I said, I live stream the Hafey Digital Podcast every week, typically on Sundays in the afternoon to evening time. I would love for you to head over there and subscribe to the Hafey Digital Podcast channel. Or if you prefer the podcast version, you can subscribe to the Hafey Digital Podcast basically wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and call this one done. Thank you so much for watching. Now go out there and make to the max. Bye-bye.